Good morning. Welcome to another edition of Mornings with Mancuso. I hope that you guys have had a fantastic weekend so far and that you've been doing everything you can to stay safe and healthy, and you're keeping your family safe and healthy, and you're not going to stir crazy. So I want to talk about three things today. I want to talk about the stimulus package that was passed on Friday by Congress. I want to talk about the president's response to coronavirus and the desire to have the country back up and open and running by Easter. And I want to talk about the difference between Governor Cuomo of New York and Governor Ron DeSantis of Florida and how they've been handling this pandemic. So before we jump into those three things, really quick, I don't know if you guys saw the cover of The Economist from last week, but it is a doozy, guys. Literally, it is the world with a close sign. If that is not a very spot-on commentary of where we are in our world right now in the middle of this pandemic, I don't know what is. The article that followed that cover story was fascinating and really kind of brought to light a lot of things that I don't think we're really thinking about in this pandemic, from the opportunity and the need for herd immunity versus continuing to social distance. I hope all of you guys are social distancing and that you're staying safe and again, healthy. But in effort to keep the economy moving, because the economy cannot stop moving for a number of reasons, the Congress passed a $2 trillion, yes, I said trillion with a T, $1 trillion budget. It's a it's a stimulus package, and it is to help small business owners. It's to help people that have lost their jobs, people that are filing for unemployment. It's to help all of these things to keep the economy moving and to keep people safe and help their bank account, basically. So right now, in the stimulus package, there's a couple things that I think are of note. One is that if you made $75,000 or less in either your adjusted gross income was less than $75,000, for the 2018 tax year or the 2019 tax year, it depends on if you filed yet. If you haven't filed taxes for 2019, they have actually moved and extended the deadline from April 15th to July 15th. So if you've been waiting, like myself, congratulations, we've got a little more time. But anyways, if you had an adjusted gross income of less than $75,000 and you're single, then you will receive a check for $1,200. If you are married and you made less than $150,000, you will receive a check for $2,400. And if you have children, you will receive $500 per child. So if you have 2 kids, you'll receive $1,000 on top of the $2,400 if you're married, or on top of the $1,200 if you are single. And that is just to help kind of not only pay bills, but to help stimulate the economy. And we'll see what happens, right? Like some places that you live, if you live in New York City, a $1,200 stimulus check is fantastic. But the reality is it's probably not going to cover your rent. So the government is doing the best that they can. They've also added on to the unemployment for those of you that have filed for unemployment. They've added on an addendum where you'll receive an additional $600 from the government on top of what the state's unemployment will give you. And that's going to be helpful, but again, it might not make ends meet. Nevertheless, this is, I think, the beginning of what we will see another stimulus package have to come as we get further into this pandemic. Because as I've been telling people, the reality is we haven't even reached the apex of this epidemic. We haven't begun to see the economic ramifications. And I think that this is a preventative measure as much as we can have one by the Congress. So that is something to keep in mind. If you have any questions about the stimulus package or you're not quite sure, let me know. Feel free to drop it in the comments, or you can shoot me a message. I am here to help and answer any questions. If not, I can point you to a number of articles that can probably help better than myself. After all, I am not an economist. So now let's talk about the president. Guys, so last week, towards the end of the week, the president's like, the country is going to be up and raring to go by April 12th. I don't even know where to start with this, because the reality is that is 14 days from today. It's literally 2 weeks away, and we're still all gathering in place. We're still all practicing social distancing. And the reality is that the models that I have seen have shown that even in 2 weeks from today, it's not necessarily going to flatten the curve the way that everybody is hoping to flatten the curve. And I hope that he will, he has said that he's going to take this weekend to review everything and think about it. And I really hope that he comes out and kind of walks that back, because I think that it is difficult to be self-quarantined. Like, I am not advocating that this is like the greatest thing since sliced bread, unless of course you are an introvert, then it is probably totally your jam. I am guilty, it is totally my jam. I've been joking with my husband that I literally have been training for this my entire life. I get to stay home and read my books and hang out with my dog and my husband. I mean, but the reality is that for an extended period, right, to move beyond just the past couple of weeks, this is not something that is ideal for the economy, for the world, and for all of us that have to go to work and do our jobs. So I think that the president's going to hopefully be able to walk this back, because I think April 12th, it is a lofty goal at best, but everything I'm hearing from businesses to restaurants to other people that are working in other industries, they were being told April 30th. We know that Hawaii, California, and New York are basically all gathering in place until the end of April, and some are beginning to think about extending that into May. So we will have to wait and see. What do you guys think? Are you ready to just like kind of get about your lives, or are you kind of like nervous? I think that we'll continue to see, a kind of the ramifications of people being very cautious to fly, people to just get on cruise ships and travel, and gathering with a bunch of people. I think that'll take some time for it to kind of wear off, where people aren't really worried as much as they would be under these conditions. Okay, so let's talk really quick about New York versus Florida. It seems like New York versus Florida is always kind of a hot topic, because in Florida we have a lot of New Yorkers who come down and they enjoy their winters here and they live here, and then we have people that have family in New York that live in Florida. It's a whole thing. Anyways, Governor Cuomo, he literally issued a gather in place and has shut New York City down. New York State in general is just shut down, and some people are thinking that that was too extreme of a measure for him to take with this pandemic. Other people are saying that this is what we need, and we need to kind of flatten the curve because it has become the epicenter of this pandemic. What do you guys think? Do you think that this was like an appropriate response? I think that, in my opinion, I think that Governor Cuomo did the right thing. For those of you that had visited New York City, for those of you who have lived in New York City, I lived in New York City for 5 years. It is a very, there are literally in about less than 10 miles, there's over 8 million people that live in that little island of Manhattan. Not even considering the rest of the state. There's like a whole other entire state out there, but in Manhattan, it is so concentrated with people. And the way that COVID-19 spreads is it literally just kind of spreads out so quickly, a lot faster than the flu. I know that people have been trying to relate this to the flu, and it is not the flu. It is like a million times worse. Okay, maybe not a million, but it's really bad. And so I think that Governor Cuomo came out and wanted to get in front of this and do the best that he could. He was listening to the scientists, and he was paying attention to healthcare workers, and he was not trying to bombard our hospitals and everything. So in that regard, I think that he was definitely the man of the hour. Now let's look at Florida. I don't know where you are if you're in Florida. I don't know if you're in South Florida. I don't know if you're in North Florida or you're in Central Florida. I am in South Florida. I live in Palm Beach County, and I can tell you that Palm Beach County has been hit very hard. Broward County also, and Miami-Dade has been hit very hard. And it's been interesting because as we've watched the governor respond and saying that he doesn't need to order a shelter-in-place order, that everyone just needs to be mindful, and that non-essential businesses need to close, and that businesses such as restaurants need to go to takeout only. But the reality is that places like Palm Beach County, Broward, and Miami-Dade that are really suffering the brunt of this, they're starting to take their own efforts to really force people to just gather in place. So Miami-Dade and Broward County have started moving to those types of calls, and we're really seeing this kind of trickle down. So do you think that Governor Ron DeSantis should come out and say, hey guys, we need to gather in place? His mentality is that actually that is not appropriate, because it would just be this blunt response to the pandemic that's only affecting a small portion of the state. Maybe so. However, I can assure you that if your grandmother is living in Orlando, you probably don't want her traveling to Ocala or up all over to Naples or to Tampa if she's at high risk. So I don't know. I think that we see two extremes, right? We see Governor Cuomo, who's taking swift action quickly, and he's taking this massive task of saying gather in place. We've shut down the state. Meanwhile, Governor DeSantis is on the other end saying, well, counties really need to just focus on themselves. And I think I'm somewhere in the between. I would like kind of a little bit more of a response from the governor, because I do live in an area that is so affected by this. And at the same time, I can understand why he's a little concerned, because after all, situations like these, as sad as this is, and as I don't want to make this political, the reality is that situations and how leaders handle these types of situations will make or break their political career. And if he moves too swiftly or he doesn't move hard enough, it's going to cause a lot of problems as he looks for re-election. And, you know, we're hearing from Democratic leadership across the state who's pushing back on the governor, telling him that he needs to shut the state down. And I would be really curious to hear what your thoughts are. Where are you located? Are you really seeing this being an issue? Or are you like, oh, you know, I think everyone's just kind of overreacting? Please let me know in your comments below. I hope that you guys continue to have a fabulous weekend. I hope you continue to stay safe and healthy. And if there's anything that you maybe want to learn a little bit more about, please let me know, drop it in the comments or shoot me a message. In the meantime, have a fantastic Sunday, and I will see you guys soon. Bye.